Have you ever wondered why it seems like the universe is conspiring to leave you alone? Why, even when surrounded by people, you feel a deep emptiness that no one can fill? Why do your relationships fail, your friendships dissolve, and you repeatedly find yourself walking through life alone? What if I told you this isn't punishment, but a calling? Carl Jung, the revolutionary Swiss psychologist, discovered something that will completely change your perspective on loneliness. He revealed that the universe doesn't isolate you to punish you, but to awaken you to something far greater. There's a profound psychological process happening when you feel isolated, an ancestral mechanism that's preparing you for an extraordinary transformation. Get ready to discover the secret Jung kept about loneliness and how it can be your greatest ally in the journey of self-discovery. What you're about to learn will revolutionize your understanding of why you feel different, isolated, and misunderstood. This isn't just another psychological theory, it's the key to unlocking your true potential. 1. The silent calling. Why your soul pulls you away from crowds. There's something stirring deep inside you that you can't quite name. It's like a whisper that grows louder every time you're in a room full of people, yet feel completely alone. This isn't sadness or depression. It's something far more mysterious and powerful. Jung called this the voice of your authentic self, desperately trying to get your attention. Think about those moments when you're at a party, surrounded by laughter and conversation, but you feel like you're watching everything through glass. Everyone seems to be speaking a language you don't understand, living in a world that feels foreign to your soul. You smile, you nod, you play the part, but inside, something is pulling you away from all of it. This pull isn't weakness. It's your inner wisdom, recognizing that you're meant for something different. Your soul knows that the path to who you're meant to become doesn't run through crowded rooms and shallow conversations. It runs through the quiet spaces where you can hear your own thoughts, where you can feel your own heartbeat, where you can finally listen to what your deepest self has been trying to tell you. The universe isn't punishing you by making social situations feel empty or draining. It's actually protecting you from losing yourself in other people's expectations and dreams. Every time you feel that urge to leave early, to skip the gathering, to choose a quiet night at home over another social event, you're not being antisocial. You're being called home to yourself. Jung understood that some souls are designed to walk a different path. These are the souls that must journey inward before they can truly connect with the outer world. They must discover their own truth before they can recognize truth in others. They must learn to be comfortable in their own company before they can offer genuine companionship to anyone else. This calling often starts in childhood. You might remember being the kid who preferred books to playground games, who found more magic in their imagination than in group activities. You might have been called shy or quiet, but what you really were was listening to something that other children couldn't hear. As you grew older, this calling became stronger. Relationships that once felt exciting began to feel suffocating. Jobs that should have been fulfilling felt meaningless. Friends who used to energize you started draining your spirit. This wasn't because there was something wrong with these people or situations. It was because your soul was outgrowing them. The calling pulls you towards solitude, not to make you lonely, but to help you discover who you really are beneath all the masks you've learned to wear. In the quiet, away from the noise of other people's opinions and expectations, you can finally hear your own voice. You can feel your own emotions without wondering if they're appropriate. You can dream your own dreams without worrying if they make sense to anyone else. This process can feel scary because we're taught from birth that happiness comes from connection with others. But Jung discovered that the deepest connections can only be formed by people who have first learned to connect with themselves. The most authentic relationships are built between two people who know who they are when they're alone. Your soul is calling you away from the crowd because it knows you have inner work to do. There are parts of yourself you haven't met yet, gifts you haven't discovered, wisdom you haven't uncovered. These treasures can only be found in solitude, in the sacred space between you and your deeper self. The beautiful truth is that this calling isn't permanent isolation, it's preparation. You're being called away so you can return as someone more genuine, more powerful, more connected to your true purpose. The crowd will still be there when you're ready, but you'll approach it from a place of strength rather than need, wholeness rather than emptiness. Right now, that pull you feel towards solitude is your soul's way of saying, come home to yourself. There's something amazing waiting for you here. And the most courageous thing you can do is listen. 2. The sacred wound. When the pain of isolation becomes wisdom. Now that you understand this calling isn't punishment but invitation, you might still wonder why it hurts so much. The ache of isolation, the longing for connection while simultaneously pushing it away, this contradiction creates what Jung called the sacred wound. And here's what might surprise you. This wound is not something to heal quickly or avoid. It's something to honor because it's actually transforming you. Pain has always been humanity's greatest teacher. When you touch something hot, pain teaches you to pull away. When you lose someone you love, grief teaches you how precious connection really is. And when you feel the deep ache of isolation, that pain is teaching you something profound about your own nature and purpose. This particular wound feels different from other types of pain because it seems to have no obvious cause or cure. You might have friends who care about you, family who loves you, even romantic partners who want to be close to you. Yet the feeling persists, that sense of being fundamentally alone in the world, misunderstood, different from everyone around you. Jung realized that this wound serves a specific purpose in human development. It creates what he called divine discontent, a restless energy that won't let you settle for surface-level living. The pain of isolation pushes you to dig deeper, to question more, to seek meaning in places others never think to look. Think of it like this. If you were completely comfortable and satisfied with superficial connections, you might never discover the profound relationships possible with yourself and others. If shallow conversations filled you up completely, you might never hunger for the deeper truths that can only be found in solitude and reflection. The sacred wound acts like a spiritual GPS, constantly redirecting you away from what doesn't truly nourish your soul and toward what does. Every time you feel that familiar ache in a social situation, it's your inner compass telling you this isn't where you belong right now. Every time loneliness hits you in a crowded room, it's pointing you back toward the inner work that still needs to be done. But here's where it gets interesting. This wound also makes you incredibly sensitive to authentic connection when you do find it. People who have felt deeply isolated often become the most empathetic, the most understanding, the most capable of seeing and honoring the hidden struggles in others. Your pain becomes a bridge to other people's pain, creating connections more real than anything surface-level socializing could ever produce. The wound also develops your intuition in ways that constant external stimulation never could. In the quiet spaces where your isolation lives, you learn to hear the subtle whispers of your inner voice. You develop the ability to sense what's really happening beneath people's words and actions. You become fluent in the language of emotions that most people never learn to speak. This is why Jung called it sacred, because it's doing holy work in your life. It's burning away everything false, everything borrowed, everything that isn't truly you. Like a refining fire, the pain of isolation purifies your sense of self until only what's authentic remains. The transformation happens slowly, almost invisibly. One day you realize that the ache isn't quite as sharp as it used to be. Not because you found someone to fill the void, but because you've discovered that the void was actually sacred space, room for your true self to emerge and grow. You start to understand that your wound has been your teacher all along, showing you the difference between connection and codependency, between love and need, between belonging and conformity. The pain that once felt like punishment reveals itself as preparation for a kind of relationship most people never experience. True intimacy built on two complete people choosing each other rather than two incomplete people needing each other. This sacred wound connects you to an ancient tradition of mystics, artists, philosophers, and healers who have walked the path of necessary solitude. Your isolation isn't a mistake or a failure, it's an initiation into a deeper way of being human. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. 3. The broken mirror. Why you don't fit in anywhere. The sacred wound you've been carrying starts to make even more sense when you realize that your struggle to fit in isn't a personal failure. It's actually a sign that you're seeing something others can't see yet. You look around at the world like you're staring into a broken mirror, where nothing quite reflects back the way you expected it to. But what if that broken mirror is showing you the truth that everyone else is missing? From the time you were young, you probably felt like there was some secret handbook for life that everyone else received, but somehow skipped you. You watched other people navigate social situations with ease, find their tribes effortlessly, and seem genuinely excited about things that left you feeling empty or confused. You wondered what was wrong with you, why you couldn't just be happy with what made everyone else happy. The truth Jung discovered is that some people are born with different eyes that see through the surface of things to what lies beneath. While others are content with the reflection in the mirror, you see the cracks, the distortions, the places where reality doesn't match up with what everyone pretends is true. This gift of deeper sight is exactly what makes it impossible for you to fit into spaces that require you to ignore what you're seeing. Think about how exhausting it feels to pretend enthusiasm for conversations that feel meaningless to you. How draining it is to laugh at jokes that aren't funny, to care about dramas that seem trivial, to get excited about achievements that feel hollow. You're not being negative or difficult. You're simply unable to unsee what you've seen. Once you've glimpsed the deeper layers of existence, the surface world starts to feel like a stage play where everyone has forgotten their acting. This is why traditional paths often feel wrong for you, even when they look perfect on paper. The career that should have been fulfilling feels like wearing clothes that don't fit. The relationship that looked ideal on the surface leaves you feeling more alone than being actually alone. The social groups that welcomed you with open arms somehow make you feel like an outsider looking in. Your inability to fit in isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature. You're designed to see what others miss, to question what others accept, to seek truth in places others are afraid to look. This makes you uncomfortable in any environment that requires you to pretend, to go along with things that don't feel right, to silence the voice inside you that keeps whispering, "But this isn't real." The broken mirror effect happens because you're comparing your inner reality with everyone else's outer performance. You see your own doubts, fears, confusion, and depth, while everyone else shows you their carefully crafted public selves. No wonder you feel different. You're seeing the real you, while everyone else is showing you their highlight reel. But here's what's actually happening. Your refusal to fit into spaces that don't honor your authentic self is creating pressure for those spaces to evolve. Every time you can't force yourself to be excited about something shallow, you're holding space for something deeper. Every time you feel awkward in a situation that prizes conformity over truth, you're representing the possibility of more genuine connection. You might not realize it, but other people notice your authenticity even when they can't name it. They sense that you're not pretending, that you're not putting on a show, that what you offer is real in a way that's become rare. Some people are threatened by this because it highlights their own masks. But others are drawn to it like flowers to sunlight, hungry for the kind of genuine presence you carry. The broken mirror isn't showing you a flawed reflection of yourself. It's showing you a world that hasn't caught up to who you're becoming. You don't fit because you're not meant to squeeze yourself into spaces designed for who you used to be or who others expect you to be. You're being shaped for something that doesn't exist yet, prepared for connections and purposes that are still forming. Jung understood that the people who feel most out of place in the current world are often the ones meant to help create the new one. Your discomfort with shallow living isn't a personal problem to solve. It's a compass pointing toward the deeper life you're meant to live and help others discover. The mirror isn't broken at all. It's just reflecting a truth that most people aren't ready to see yet. And that's exactly why you're the one seeing it. 4. The lonely hero's journey. Your greater destiny awaits. Understanding that you see what others can't see naturally leads to the next revelation. You're not just different, you're being prepared for something specific. The isolation, the inability to fit in, the sacred wound, they're all part of what Jung recognized as the classic hero's journey, except this one happens mostly inside your own soul. And like all heroes, you're being trained for a destiny bigger than your current circumstances. Every great story begins the same way, with someone who doesn't quite belong in their ordinary world. The hero always feels called to something greater, pulled away from the comfortable and familiar toward an unknown adventure. What makes this journey so lonely is that heroes must walk this path alone first, before they can return to help others find their own way. Your isolation isn't random suffering, it's specialized training. Think about what this time apart from the crowd has taught you. You've learned to trust your own judgment when everyone else disagrees. You've developed the courage to stand alone with your truth. You've built strength in the quiet places where no one else can help you. These aren't consolation prizes for being lonely. These are the exact skills heroes need. The ordinary world keeps trying to pull you back into its familiar patterns, but something inside you knows you're meant for more. That restless feeling you get when life feels too small, too predictable, too safe, that's not dissatisfaction, that's destiny calling. Your soul knows you have work to do that can only be done by someone who has walked through the darkness and found their own light. This is why your relationships often feel unsatisfying, why careers that work for others leave you empty, why you can't seem to settle into the life everyone thinks you should want. You're not meant to settle. You're meant to keep growing, keep questioning, keep pushing towards something greater. The loneliness you feel is the space where your true purpose is incubating. Heroes in stories always receive gifts during their time in the wilderness. Magical weapons, special knowledge, supernatural abilities. Your time in isolation has been giving you gifts too, even if you don't recognize them yet. You've developed deep empathy from understanding suffering. You've gained wisdom from having to find answers within yourself. You've built resilience from surviving challenges that would break people who've never learned to be strong alone. But the hero's journey doesn't end with personal growth. The point of becoming strong, wise, and authentic isn't just for your own benefit. It's so you can return to the ordinary world with something to offer that wasn't there before. You're being prepared to be a bridge between the shallow world most people inhabit and the deeper world you've discovered. This means your isolation has an expiration date. There will come a time when you're ready to emerge from your journey and share what you've learned. But you won't be returning to fit into the old world. You'll be returning to help create a new one. The people who couldn't understand you before will suddenly see you differently, not because you've become who they wanted you to be, but because you've become so completely yourself that they can't help but respect it. The loneliness you've endured is creating capacity within you for connections most people never experience. When you do find your tribe, and you will, these relationships will be built on truth rather than convenience, depth rather than surface compatibility, genuine love rather than mutual need. Your greater destiny isn't just about what you'll do, it's about who you'll become and how that will give others permission to become who they really are too. Every person who has ever felt isolated and different needs to see that it's possible to transform that difference into strength, that loneliness into wisdom, that wound into gift. The journey isn't over yet, but you're closer than you think to the moment when everything you've been through starts to make perfect sense. Your heroic journey through isolation is preparing you to be exactly who the world needs you to be. 5. Universe's signs, how to recognize when you're being prepared. Now that you understand you're on a hero's journey, you might be wondering how to tell the difference between meaningful isolation and just being stuck in a difficult period. The universe has been sending you signals all along, but learning to read them changes everything about how you experience this process. These signs aren't mysterious or mystical. They're practical patterns that show you're being deliberately prepared for something greater. The first sign is what Jung called meaningful coincidences. Moments when your inner world and outer world seem to align in ways that feel too perfect to be random. You might be thinking about a specific question or struggle, and then you encounter exactly the book, conversation, or experience that speaks to that issue. These aren't accidents. They're breadcrumbs leading you toward your next level of growth. Another clear sign is the way certain people and situations naturally fall away from your life, even when you're not actively pushing them away. Friendships that once felt important gradually fade. Job opportunities that should excite you feel wrong from the moment you hear about them. Romantic relationships that look perfect on paper somehow never quite work out. This isn't bad luck. It's the universe clearing your path of everything that would distract you from your real purpose. Pay attention to what energizes you versus what drains you. When you're being prepared, you'll notice that activities aligned with your authentic self give you energy even when they're challenging, while activities that go against your nature exhaust you even when they're easy. Your body becomes a compass, physically showing you what's meant for you and what isn't. You'll also start having dreams that feel different from regular dreams, more vivid, more meaningful, sometimes almost like messages. Jung believed these dreams were your unconscious mind, processing the changes happening within you and showing you glimpses of who you're becoming. You might dream of flying, of discovering hidden rooms in familiar places, of meeting versions of yourself you've never seen before. The timing of challenges in your life reveals another pattern. You'll notice that just when you think you've figured something out, a new test appears that pushes you to go deeper. Just when you get comfortable with one level of solitude, circumstances arise that require you to go even further inward. This isn't the universe being cruel. It's giving you exactly the training you need for what's coming. One of the most powerful signs is the way your tolerance for fake connections completely disappears. Small talk becomes physically uncomfortable. Superficial activities feel like torture. You lose the ability to pretend interest in things that don't matter to you. This isn't you becoming antisocial. It's your authentic self getting stronger and refusing to waste energy on anything that isn't real. You might also notice that you're becoming a magnet for other people's deepest thoughts and feelings. Strangers tell you things they've never told anyone. Friends come to you with their most serious problems. People seem to sense that you can handle truth in a way that others can't. This happens because your journey through isolation has made you safe for other people's authenticity. Your interests start shifting toward things that help you understand yourself and the world more deeply. You might find yourself drawn to philosophy, psychology, spirituality, or creative arts in ways you never were before. Books that would have bored you in the past suddenly feel essential. You develop a hunger for knowledge that goes beyond entertainment or career advancement. The way you handle conflict changes too. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations or getting swept up in drama, you find yourself naturally seeking the truth beneath surface arguments. You become less reactive and more curious about what's really happening in tense situations. This shift shows that you're developing the emotional maturity needed for the bigger role you're being prepared for. Perhaps the clearest sign is a growing sense of inner peace, even in the middle of outer chaos. While your circumstances might still be challenging, you develop an unshakable knowing that you're exactly where you need to be. This isn't resignation. It's the deep confidence that comes from trusting the process, even when you can't see the whole picture. These signs aren't just random occurrences. They're evidence that something bigger than your conscious mind is orchestrating your development. Recognizing them helps you cooperate with the process instead of fighting it, making the journey faster and less painful. 6. Inner alchemy. Transforming loneliness into personal power. Recognizing the universe's signs is just the beginning. Now comes the real work of transformation. This is where Jung's concept of inner alchemy becomes crucial. Just like ancient alchemists tried to turn base metals into gold, you're learning to transform your most difficult emotions into your greatest strengths. And loneliness, it turns out, is one of the most powerful raw materials for creating authentic personal power. Real personal power isn't about controlling other people or forcing circumstances to go your way. It's about becoming so solid in who you are that external chaos can't shake your inner foundation. The hours you've spent alone, feeling isolated and misunderstood, have been secretly building this foundation, stone by stone. Think about what happens when you're forced to sit with your own thoughts and feelings without distraction. At first, it's uncomfortable. All your fears, insecurities, and unresolved issues come to the surface. But as you learn to stay present with these difficult emotions instead of running from them, something magical happens. You discover that you can survive your own inner storms. You realize that your feelings, no matter how intense, can't actually destroy you. This realization is the beginning of true power. Most people spend their entire lives running from discomfort, which means they're always at the mercy of their circumstances. But when you've learned to be okay with being uncomfortable, when you've made peace with uncertainty and learned to find strength in solitude, you become unshakable in a way that most people never achieve. Loneliness teaches you self-reliance in the deepest sense, not the surface-level independence of paying your own bills or making your own decisions, but the profound self-reliance of knowing you can trust yourself to handle whatever comes up. You've sat with your own pain and survived. You've faced your own darkness and found light within it. You've been your own companion through the hardest times, and that creates an unbreakable bond with yourself. This process also reveals talents and insights you never knew you had. When you can't rely on constant external stimulation or validation, you're forced to develop your inner resources. You might discover you're naturally intuitive, that you can sense things others miss. You might find you have a gift for seeing patterns, for understanding complex emotions, for offering wisdom that comes from lived experience rather than book learning. The alchemy happens gradually. Each time you choose to stay present with loneliness, instead of frantically trying to escape it, you're building emotional muscle. Each time you resist the urge to fill the silence with meaningless activity or connection, you're developing the ability to be genuinely comfortable with yourself. Each time you honor your need for solitude, even when others don't understand it, you're strengthening your commitment to your authentic path. What emerges from this process is a kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself. You stop feeling the need to convince others you're worthy of love or respect because you've learned to give these things to yourself. You stop seeking validation from external sources because you've developed an internal source of approval that can't be taken away. This inner transformation changes how you move through the world. Your presence becomes calmer but stronger. Your words carry more weight because they come from genuine experience rather than borrowed wisdom. Your decisions become clearer because they're based on deep self-knowledge rather than other people's expectations. People start responding to you differently too. They sense the solid ground you're standing on and either feel drawn to that stability or intimidated by it. Those who are ready for authentic connection are naturally attracted to the realness you've developed. Those who prefer surface-level interaction often drift away without drama or conflict. The loneliness that once felt like punishment reveals itself as the exact training you needed to become someone who can offer genuine presence to others. You can now sit with other people's pain without trying to fix it because you've learned to sit with your own. You can offer true companionship because you've become your own best friend. This is the gold that emerges from the base metal of isolation, not just personal strength, but the ability to be genuinely helpful to others who are walking similar paths. Your transformed loneliness becomes a gift you can offer to a world full of people who are desperately hungry for authentic connection. 7. Shadow awakening. Embracing the rejected parts of yourself. The personal power you've been developing through inner alchemy leads to perhaps the most challenging and transformative part of your journey. Meeting the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide, deny, or be ashamed of. Jung called this your shadow, and it's not what most people think. Your shadow isn't just your negative traits. It's everything about you that doesn't fit the acceptable image you learn to present to the world. During your time in isolation, without the constant pressure to perform for others, these hidden parts of yourself start emerging from the darkness. Maybe you discover anger you didn't know you had, or dreams that seemed too big or strange to share with anyone. Perhaps you find yourself drawn to ideas that your family or culture would disapprove of, or you realize you have needs and desires that don't match what people expect from someone like you. This awakening can feel terrifying at first because you've spent so much energy keeping these parts buried. You were taught that good people don't feel certain things, that successful people don't want certain things, that acceptable people don't think certain thoughts. But isolation strips away these external judgments and forces you to face the fullness of who you really are. The shadow often contains not just your perceived flaws, but also your greatest gifts. Maybe you have a creative side that your practical family never understood. Perhaps you're naturally rebellious in a way that school and work tried to suppress. You might have deep spiritual intuitions that your rational mind learned to dismiss. The very qualities that made you feel different or wrong might actually be your superpowers waiting to be claimed. Jung discovered that people who refuse to acknowledge their shadow remain forever incomplete. They spend their lives projecting their disowned qualities onto others, feeling triggered by people who openly express what they've hidden in themselves. But when you start embracing your shadow, something profound happens. You become whole in a way that gives you access to your full range of human experience. This integration process happens naturally during extended periods of solitude. Without the need to maintain a socially acceptable mask, you start seeing all the different facets of your personality. You might notice that you're simultaneously gentle and fierce, logical and intuitive, independent and deeply loving. These contradictions don't mean you're confused. They mean you're complex, like all real human beings. The shadow often holds the key to understanding why certain relationships or situations have felt wrong to you. If you've always tried to be the agreeable person, your shadow might contain healthy boundaries and the ability to say no. If you've always been the responsible one, your shadow might hold spontaneity and playfulness. If you've always been logical, your shadow might contain deep emotional wisdom. As you start accepting these hidden parts, You begin to understand that your isolation wasn't just about healing wounds or developing strength. It was about creating a safe space for your whole self to emerge. You needed time away from other people's expectations and judgments to discover who you really are beneath all the roles you've learned to play. This shadow work explains why authentic connections have been so hard to find. You can't form real relationships when you're only showing half of yourself. Other people sense when someone is holding back essential parts of their personality, and it creates a barrier to genuine intimacy. But as you embrace your shadow, you become capable of the kind of honest, complete presence that creates truly deep bonds. The process also reveals why you felt so different from others. While most people are still running from their shadow, your isolation has forced you to face yours. This gives you a kind of emotional range and authenticity that feels foreign to people who are still hiding from themselves. They might not understand you, but they can sense that you've accessed something real that they're missing. Your shadow awakening isn't just personal development, it's preparation for a kind of leadership the world desperately needs. People who have integrated their shadow can hold space for others' complexity and contradictions. They can see beyond surface presentations to the full humanity in every person. They can offer the kind of non-judgmental presence that allows others to stop hiding too. The most beautiful part of this process is discovering that the very things you thought made you unlovable are actually what make you most genuinely yourself. Your isolation has given you the gift of meeting your complete self without apology, and that wholeness is exactly what will allow you to finally come home, both to yourself and to the connections you've been seeking all along. Here's the truth that changes everything. You weren't isolated to become someone different. You were isolated to become someone complete. And the world has been waiting for exactly who you're becoming.